Welcome in our buddy Will Griffith at the Kings Herald here. Will, we're happy to hear you. Kind of alluded to this just a moment ago, and this was I always got the first question planned, and I can't wait to hear what you think. You before the season started came on this show and was like, "Y'all are crazy. I'm not feeling this roster," and we had to bring you back when it was clear you were right. How do you feel today?
Well, I feel like this is the reason why you never get too high or too low. And that's the reason why the last time I came on, I didn't absolutely ask you guys to beg me for forgiveness for calling 35 wins because any day Monty McNair wants to, he can completely remake this roster. And he's done it. I mean, I feel a lot happier now than I did at the beginning of the season. There's still a lot more work to go, but this is a core that you can build around now.
How do you how do you think he did? I thought for what he gave up, what he got in return was a phenomenal haul. And I've been super critical of Monty for the past 2 months, but man, he got in his bag this past week, man. What did you think about the additions and the value he got for the additions?
I don't think you could have gotten much better value. I mean, especially, we're going to be able to argue Halliburton for Sabonis till the end of time. It's going to be the new Luka Doncic. You know, you pass on Luka Doncic. I have no doubt in my mind we'll have people that'll commiserate for the next decade about it. But I will say that the value he got in return, especially from Marvin, was out of this world. I could not believe what he got from Marvin. And you know, I'll say Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday. Those aren't bad pieces either. You know, they got really good wings on a team where there was absolutely no wings. You heard Harrison Barnes, you know, you could see him light up knowing that like he's not out there carrying that load by himself. I think that the return for Bagley especially made up for any lack of, you know, return you might have thought you got for Sabonis. I couldn't be happier for Monty McNair pulling off what I figured was near impossible, and he pulled it off.
Monty McNair, of course, is a really big fan of the Kings Herald. Let me ask you about you just named a number of acquisitions here that came in at the trade deadline. What does that do, particularly Sabonis? What does that do to some of the guys who are currently on the roster? And we'll pick up a conversation that Kenny and I were having to start the show. DAngelo DiVincenzo, you know, I assume he's at the two guard position. What happens with Richaun Holmes now? Like we saw a very limited role in Domantas Sabonis's first game. Of course, it's a one game sample size, man, but that was a different workload for Richaun Holmes in that one.
Yeah, I think somebody like Richaun goes from being secure. He just got his new contract. He's the starter for the Sacramento Kings. You know, regardless of how many they win or lose, he's that guy holding down the center spot. And suddenly, he's coming off the bench like he's done every other stop he's been. I feel like at this point they'll really have to find a way to work him in, if not just to keep him warm, but also for trade value. You don't want to suddenly keep him at 10 minutes a game if you're what I assume what Monty's going to do is he sees him as an asset. And he couldn't get the assets in return for the deadline, but this offseason, he's got Harrison Barnes that he could extend, or he could flip for somebody with Holmes and with whatever first round picks they want to do to get a third piece. They've got options, and Monty has stressed optionality for a long time, but Holmes especially, that was the one that I was thinking of when you were talking about this, is that he's kind of the odd man out, and they're going to have to find a way to either stagger those two guys playing minutes or find a way that they can play both of those guys at the same time and see if they can stretch Sabonis out a little bit more, or this rumored Richaun Holmes is secretly a 3-point shooter might have to come out and play. One of those things has to happen in order to get Richaun maybe not the time he wants, but some of the touches that he might want.
Yeah. We all want to see Sabonis. He's the main attraction and everything that happened during the deadline. But I want to kind of see everybody else. Is there anybody else outside of Sabonis that was acquired this week that you're looking forward to and looking to see if they can fit with what this team's trying to do?
I think obviously DiVincenzo is one of those guys. We've been, he's been kind of half a king now for a couple of years, and I think he's still got some recovery from that injury that he had. He had kind of a bum ankle, but I really want to see him play with Davion Mitchell. I think those backcourts, whether they're just for small stretches or whatnot, could be a terror in the league. I mean, they're really, really, really going to make it hard for the opponents here on the defensive end. I know that we watched the other night in the fourth quarter that D'Angelo Russell went 0 for. I mean, he shot 0 5 in the fourth quarter being guarded by Davion Mitchell, and that's the difference between the Kings winning and losing that game, because up until that point, he'd been red hot. I mean, he still almost scored 30 points, so I'm not going to not give him his flowers there, but like when it came to crunch time, he was there. I mean, stretches with him and Dante, who is a fantastic, a defender in that regard. I think you could see teams where Fox is struggling to get in front of somebody. Okay, we're throwing 4 minutes out there of DiVincenzo and Davion and see just what kind of hell they can raise.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Holiday had a big role in the game as well. He was actually the starter over Davion in the game on Wednesday. Now we're throwing Dante DiVincenzo into it also. Does Davion now kind of become primarily the backup one?
I think so. I think at least for the time being. I mean, they're going to have some reshuffling here in the offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Holiday move to the 3 and DiVincenzo to the 2, or DiVincenzo is the backup point guard. And there's a lot of shuffling that they can do. And Alvin Gentry is going to have, I'm sure he's going to have a lot more fun than what he's been having the last couple of months, just being able to pick and choose who he wants to play and when he wants to play them. But I would foresee Davion being the 6th man for a while. Yeah, absolutely.
Getting stabbed in the temple is probably more fun than Alvin Gentry's had the last couple of months.
His local liquor store is going to really be disappointed, and they're not going to see him around much anymore.
Tell me what you think about Trey Lyles. I kind of looked at some tape or whatever Trey Lyles, and kind of studied kind of what went on with his career up to this point. And he's been solid, I guess, maybe underperforming to some people, but it seemed like in Detroit this past year, he got a real opportunity to play heavy minutes and get a bigger role. And he's been better. Like, he's improved, I think, everywhere across the board. I like his game. Kind of reminds me of, I don't think he's as good as this guy, but it kind of reminds me of Kyle Anderson, slow-mo Kyle Anderson. But the thing that really jumped out is the way how smooth he shoots the basketball, and putting him with Sabonis. I don't know. I feel like that might have been a sneaky pickup for the Kings. I'm anxious to see what he can do. What you think about Trey Lyles?
I think Trey Lyles might take some minutes from Chimezie Metu. I think that, just because he's got a smooth shooting stroke and because he can do some of those things that Chimezie, not that Chimezie doesn't like to shoot, but, putting him down is another thing. And I think Trey Lyles can do that a little bit better. I think you're right that he's an interesting fit next to Sabonis. I don't think he's nearly the shot blocker we want long term. I think he kind of is who he is, but he's one of those guys too that it's like, oh, okay, I didn't think you could have. I mean, if they'd have swapped Bagley for Trey Lyles and a 2nd round pick, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, that was a decent, flyer on somebody. Everybody gets a flyer on somebody, and a 2nd round pick comes our way. The fact that he was able to come in with, Josh Jackson, with Dante DiVincenzo was kind of like, I don't know what he's got on these other GMs, but like, I don't know how he pulled off pulling all these pieces for Marvin Bagley.
Right.
Yeah, that's when we came to the conclusion that Dante DiVincenzo was a make good. That was essentially Milwaukee saying, hey, that's our bad. We're going to correct that. Here it is. I still can't get the math to work. Maybe we could put Will Z on this and figure out if he can make this math work, because I'm not sure how it happened either. But it did. You listened to D'Lo and KC on ESPN 1320 KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, and Odyssey Station, and driven by Lasher's Elk Grove Dodge. Happy to be joined by Will Griffith of the Kings Herald. What's the biggest weakness that the Kings still have and really do need to address this offseason?
Can I say coaching? I'm not.
No, that's okay.
I'm not going to put Alvin Gentry down for that. I think he's done a decent job. I just don't think that he's a guy that can take this group of players and turn them into a 6th seed or a 5th seed. And again, that's nothing against Alvin Gentry. I think he's done a heroic job this season, just trying to stay sane with Monty McNair, choking the life out of the Kings for as long as he can before they get a big gulp of air right here at the last possible second. But I think it's coaching. I think that Luke Walton, even with these pieces, probably couldn't have gotten him to 500. I think that they need to have a guy who's, offensively minded and have some assistants that are able to be creative in the way that they use Sabonis and Fox, because those guys aren't a good defensive core, but they aren't, I don't want to say they're necessarily slouches either. They just need somebody to show them the way. I think Chris Finch is a good example of the Timberwolves are playing really well this year, and they've got a top 12 defense in the league. And you look at the players that they have, and D'Angelo Russell's heading up a backcourt that's above the halfway mark in the NBA, and I'd have never thought that with the way Russell plays defense. But having a coach that's creative and getting these two guys to work together on both ends of the floor is going to be priority number one this offseason.
Sound crazy to ask this Sunday. Do you think this season can be salvaged? And what I mean by that is 10th seed, get in there, play some good basketball in the final 25 games of the season, not necessarily back your way in, but play good basketball to get into that play-in scenario. You think it can be salvaged?
Honestly, and this is a surprise for me to say, but and this is obviously the hype still washing over me from the last couple of days, but I think that there is a level of salvageability here. I came on here at the beginning of the season and I predicted 35 to 36 wins. That's 14-11 the rest of the way. That's playing over 500 basketball. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. They only have 8 home games left, I think. So they're gonna have to play well on the road, which the Kings haven't done. But that was 6 or 7 players ago too. Mm-hmm. So this new team, you're wiping the slate clean. It's 0-0 right now, and if they can play just above 500 basketball, and the Lakers maybe, Russ goes down or LeBron goes down, or you're hoping. I mean, I'm not hoping, but the franchise is hoping for injuries or hoping for something to implode there from some of these other teams up above, because I don't see New Orleans. New Orleans is playing well enough now. And the acquisition of CJ McCollum is going to really help them out. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Kings have enough here to go, to lose less than 10 games. Right. I don't think they go on a big run, but being the 11th seed this year, after what we just saw the last few weeks, is somewhat of a win. It will save their season ticket holders. It will bring people back into the seats for next season. And I think that's salvageable enough for the Kings this year.
Especially if you play like you did a couple of nights ago on a far more regular basis. Is draft position as important now? I mean, I know draft position is important, but it takes on a different context now that you feel like you have a better roster headed into next season.
No, yeah, I think it's the pressure off of where you land necessarily. I think without a second All-Star, we'd be sweating it for the rest of the season. But Domantas Sabonis really, really, really takes the pressure off the Kings who found value picks lower in the lottery and whatnot. So I don't even know if they necessarily keep that pick. I think that's a nice asset for somebody to have in a draft that has players that have some potential down that low, that they could swing for somebody who's a disgruntled third star there.
Have you talked to Jerry since the trade deadline or since Tyrese was traded?
Yeah, I've talked to Jerry 2 or 3 times, and he called me just today to talk about it, and I think he's pretty damn excited too. He tries to stay measured sometimes, but I think he's very, very excited for this.
That's cool.
Okay. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Excited Jerry is a good thing. That's a good thing.
And remember, he's a friend of Larry Bird's. He's very close to Larry Bird, and Larry still has a lot of connections over there in Pacers land. And so from what I know, Jerry feels like the Kings, though Halliburton was one of his favorite players on the team, if not his favorite, he sees a lot of potential with Sabonis and Fox. And I think hearing his voice was the first thing that tipped me off from being pleasantly surprised to being excited about it. Was him going, "Oh, Will, they got somebody, buddy. This is going to get interesting." Yeah. And watching that first game afterward and talking to him after the first game, you could see, okay, this is coming together, and it's coming together quick.
This basketball stuff is all fun, KC, but Will, can you tell us a little bit about Operation McNair and how that started? And I guess it's the old internet line, how it started, how it's going, because it seems to have taken on a life of its own.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, and I'm incredibly blessed to be the person that gets to sit here and tally up the numbers every single loss, and really now every single game. But it started off just with everything else we've done this season, being frustrated as hell with the Kings, and I was to the point where, I've been writing previews for 7 years, and I haven't written previews for one season that seemed even slightly hopeful, and it was just one of those things that I might quit. I might just be done. It might be time to hang it up. Give it to somebody else who isn't as jaded as I am, because I hate, trying to be as grumpy as I am some of the time. And so I just on a whim went, I'm going to donate $10 to every loss that the Kings have the rest of the season. And maybe it's just me. Maybe my readers can get a little bit of a laugh out of it. Maybe some other people can get a laugh out of it. and I put it out there in the world for people to read and see, and if they want to join in. And it's been 5-ish games. We had some people that donated because of the loss of Tyrese, not necessarily the loss of the game, and we've raised just a little over $3,000 for various Sacramento charities.
That's
and
awesome.
it's been absolutely fantastic. It's reinvigorated me to sticking around for a little while longer.
That's really
That's
cool.
awesome.
That's
Yeah,
really cool.
that's great work, Will. Now there's rumors circulating on social media that this is all about bringing the gold jerseys back. So as soon as you disconnect with us, go check your mentions, because some of your friends are having some fun with the recent Sacramento Kings tweet. Will, your stuff at the Kings Herald is great. The Kings Herald podcast with Tony and Jerry's fantastic. But what you're doing with Operation McNair is just the best, man. So we're proud of you. We love having you on the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anytime. I appreciate it.